Yo, what's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the No Cap Zone. This is the show where we dive deep into the stories, beefs, and breakthroughs in hip-hop history. I'm your host, as always, APT Songs, and today we're talking about one of the biggest questions in the game right now. Is Drake still the king of hip-hop? Or has Kendrick Lamar finally claimed the crown? Now let me set the stage for you. So Drake has been the artist of the last decade and a half. From his mixtape days with So Far Gone to chart-topping albums like Take Care, Nothing Was the Same, and Scorpion, Drake has dominated the hip-hop and streaming world for a while now. Whether you love him or hate him, the man has built an empire. He's broken records, he's secured bag after bag, and he's influenced the culture in ways that few other artists have. But here's the thing. Over the past couple of years, something has shifted. Now, Kendrick Lamar, who's always been viewed as his main competition, has been rising in ways that are impossible to ignore. Now, Kendrick Lamar had a huge 2024. Not Like Us, it was a cultural moment. The song alone won 5 Grammys, something we don't really see often in hip-hop, let alone from a single track. And this was the industry acknowledging Kendrick's influence, his ability to control the conversation, and his dominance over the competition. And then, a few months after Not Like Us dropped, he dropped GNX. GNX showed that apparently Kendrick was not done applying the pressure. Then, we had the Super Bowl, which was one of the most watched halftime shows in history. Kendrick stepped up onto that stage with the confidence of someone who knew he had already won the battle, and this was just a victory lap. His presence, performance, the way he commanded the moment, it all felt very surreal. Now, this is where Drake comes back into the conversation. See, with everything Kendrick has accomplished in the past year, the spotlight has suddenly shifted. People are asking if the balance of power in hip-hop has changed. Because for the longest time, Drake was the center of hip-hop. He set the trends, he dominated the charts, and he controlled the narrative. But now, after losing this battle to Kendrick, things feel a bit different. Now, toward the end of last year, when Kendrick was riding the momentum of Not Like Us well into the fall, Drake did something that we rarely see him do: go silent. No interviews, no major statements, barely any moves on social media aside from a few live streams with popular streamers, and very, very limited song releases. This is a big shift from how he normally operates. Normally, he controls the narrative, stays in the conversation, and just keeps the music coming. But at a point around like August of last year, he seemed to have just stepped away altogether to try to regroup. Then, on Valentine's Day, less than 1 week after Kendrick's Super Bowl show, he finally dropped new music. Some Sexy Songs for You, a collaboration album with his artist, Party Next Door. On paper, this should have been a moment. Drake and Party Next Door have a history of making great music together. But when you actually listen to the project, the response has been underwhelming. Like, musically, it's pretty much what you expect from Drake at this point. Same moody production, same R&B heavy vibes, the same subject matter about girls and doing them wrong and trying to get with them and strippers, etc. Now, there are a few solid tracks on this album, like Gimme a Hug, where he touches on the beef with Kendrick and also goes at some new targets, as well as the song Nokia, which samples the phone company's theme song from back in the day to make quite the actually great club jam. But overall, it just feels like more of the same of what we've gotten already from his previous albums like Certified Lover Boy, Honestly Nevermind, and For All the Dogs. There's been no real evolution, no reinvention. It's just more of the same. And fans are starting to notice. Now, the album is pulling in streaming numbers, and it's projected to debut at #1 on the charts this week with about 250,000, because after all, it is Drake. But even these numbers aren't the normal numbers, and the album isn't dominating the conversation the way his past albums have. The TikTok reaction's been lukewarm, and even among diehard fans, you're not hearing much excitement about this one. Now, to be fair, it is a joint album, and traditionally, his joint albums haven't done as well as his solo albums, but even still, given that he's coming off of a year of beefing with somebody, you would expect that this album would have more momentum behind it, and it just doesn't seem to have that. So that raises a question. Has Drake's formula finally run its course? Is he still giving people what they want, or are listeners just pressing play out of habit? Because while he's still at the top of the streaming charts, the engagement and the energy around his music, it feels a lot different these days. And that might be an even bigger problem than him losing a rap battle. Now, when we talk about Drake's battle with Kendrick, Drake made some major missteps that cost him. When Kendrick first sent shots at Drake on the song Like That, Drake had a decision to make. He could have ignored it, just treated it like a light jab and moved on. He could respond with one powerful track or go all in on a lyrical war. And what he did instead was try to play it both ways. He dropped multiple responses, but none of them really landed a knockout punch. He released push-ups and tailor-made freestyle, but neither of them really had the impact that they needed. Kendrick, on the other hand, stayed quiet. He just let the tension build for like a month. And when he finally responded with Euphoria, he made sure every word counted. Now, a few days later, Drake responded with Family Matters, which went in on Kendrick and touched on allegations that his best friend potentially fathered one of his children and that Kendrick possibly abused his wife. But at the same time, there were other targets going at Drake that Drake had to address in that song. And so therefore, the impact of that track specifically on Kendrick was lost, especially when 20 minutes later, Kendrick released the menacing Meet the Grams, where he verbally sent out a letter to all of Drake's main family members, including an alleged secret daughter, to apologize for how crappy of a person Drake was. I mean, yikes, it was amazing. Then of course came Not Like Us, and that's where things really started to shift. Being here in LA, this became our summer anthem. You could not go outside without hearing it in car stereos, without hearing it at weddings, clubs, every DJ was playing it. And that's because Kendrick understood the assignment and made a song that the culture had to rally behind. And that's why it played everywhere for the rest of the year leading up to the Super Bowl this year. It was a move that Drake just couldn't match. Then there was the lawsuit. Instead of firing back with another track later on, Drake decided to take legal action against UMG over alleged defamation from the Not Like Us song. The move had some fans defending him, but most saw it as a pretty weak play. You see, hip hop is built on competition and standing your ground in a battle. So running to the courts instead of the booth felt like a loss. On top of that, Kendrick never addressed the lawsuit publicly. Why? He didn't have to. His silence made Drake's moves look even worse. Now, the case was eventually dropped, but by that time, the damage was done. Fans had already moved on, and Kendrick was taking a victory lap at the Grammys and at the Super Bowl. So now we have to ask the question, did Drake underestimate Kendrick? Yes. Did he get too comfortable? Yes. You see, for years, Drake's biggest advantage was that he was untouchable in terms of popularity. But Kendrick reminded everyone that bars still matter, that cultural respect, that credibility, it shifted in Kendrick's favor. And here's the thing, Drake is still Drake. He's still selling out arenas, still topping the charts, but in terms of hip hop, in terms of his legacy, this was a loss. And now he's in a position that he's never really been in before, which is trying to reclaim something that might not be so easy to get back. So, where does Drake go from here? Is this just a rough patch, or are we actually witnessing the start of a decline? Now, let's be clear. I don't think Drake is going anywhere. He's still the most streamed hip-hop artist in the world. His tours are still doing well. He has a very, very loyal fan base in music. But culturally, the conversation is shifting. And the problem is that Drake hasn't really evolved in a while. Think about his last few albums. Certified Lover Boy, Her Loss, For All the Dogs, and now Some Sexy Songs for You. They all tend to exist in the same sonic space. Has the same themes, same flows, same approach to relationships, heartbreak, flexing, etc. And hey, it's worked for a long time, but at what point does it start feeling stale? This is where reinvention comes in. And that doesn't mean he has to completely change who he is. But let's look at artists who have had long careers. Jay-Z, Kendrick, even Kanye. They evolve, they take risk, they pivot. And when they drop something, it feels new, but it feels still like them. Drake's projects haven't recently had the same replay value, and the lack of growth in his music is starting to wear on listeners. So if he wants to stay dominant, here are some changes that I think might be necessary. Number one, switch up the production. Drake has been working with 40 and his usual production team for years, and while they've crafted some classic sounds, the formula is starting to feel a bit familiar and old. Fans already know what to expect from a Drake album before they even press play. The mixing, the beat switches, the moody ambiance, it's all become predictable. If he wants to keep things fresh, he could branch out and work with different producers who bring a new sound and energy to his musical space. Number two, stop picking on the wrong people. One reason some in the industry have distanced themselves from Drake is because of who he chooses to take shots at. He's gone after people like Serena Williams and Rihanna, figures who weren't even competing with him, all because they broke up with him. It makes him look petty rather than dominant, and over time, people stop rooting for you when your targets feel unnecessary. If he wants to engage in rap beefs, he should pick his battles more carefully outside of the rap context. Number 3, collaborate, don't appropriate. Drake has always been known for borrowing different styles, whether it's UK drill, dancehall, Afro beats, or even Memphis rap. Now in the past, he's been praised for his versatility, but now more people are calling him out for stealing rather than paying homage. A better approach? Well, instead of lifting a sound and acting like he pioneered it, he could bring in artists from those cultures and truly collaborate. Give them the platform, highlight their work, and build something more authentic versus claiming it as it's yours and not giving credit for it. Number 4, stop overplaying the surprise tricks. Early on, Drake was great at subverting expectations, whether it was dropping a surprise album or throwing in an unexpected beat switch in a song. But now, those tricks have become extremely predictable. For example, the beat switch gimmick where he switches beats in the middle of a song, in the beginning, it was very exciting when he did it. But now, like most of the songs on For All the Dogs and Some Sexy Songs for You, use that exact same trick. And so now it stops feeling fresh. He needs to surprise listeners in new ways. Number 5, expand his subject matter. Drake has been vulnerable in his music for years, but at this point, it's the same vulnerability. He can't commit, he's bitter when women leave him, he flexes, then gets lonely, wash, rinse, repeat. Now, that's not to say he has to become like a political rapper overnight or some conscious guy, but adding new perspectives would keep things interesting, Tell some different stories, talk about personal growth, reflect on the industry shifts that you've seen, A shift in perspective could go a long way in keeping his audience engaged. Right now, Drake is at a crossroads. He's still one of the biggest artists in the world, but culturally, the momentum is shifting. Kendrick has the spotlight, and for the first time in over a decade and a half, it feels like Drake isn't the dominant voice in hip-hop. But the question remains, can Drake bounce back, or has Kendrick officially taken the hip-hop crown? Let me know what you think. Hit me up in the comments, send me a message, whatever you gotta do, because this debate is far from over. Anyway, guys, thank you for tuning into this episode of the No Cap Zone. If you have a topic or subject that you'd like me to talk about, you can leave it down in the comments, or you can write to me at aptsongs@hotmail.com. That's right, I still have Hotmail. Anyway, I'm APT Songs, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace.
I'm slicker than 1,000 baby oil bottles. If you ask him, did he do it? I'm like, yeah, I'm popping models. If you see me on the mic, you know I go at it full throttle. If you hate on me today, then you gon' really hate tomorrow. I'm slicker than 1,000 baby oil bottles. If you ask him, did he do it? I'm like, yeah, I'm popping models. If you see me on the mic, you know I go at it full throttle. If you hate on me